Hello, and welcome to Art with Miss Michelle. Today we're going to learn about an artist named Chuck Close. Chuck Close is a very amazing artist, and he's overcome many obstacles in his life and continued making art through them all. Chuck Close was born in Monroe, Washington, so very close to us, and he's still alive today. He's 80 years old, and he still makes art. Chuck Close struggled as a child. It was very hard for him to read, so he had a difficult time in school. He had something called dyslexia, which makes it really difficult to read words. So he struggled a lot in school, and he actually became inspired to become an artist when he went to the Seattle Art Museum and looked at some paintings by an artist named Jackson Pollock. So I know a lot of us have been to the Seattle Art Museum, and he went to the University of Washington for college, and after college he moved out to New York, where there's many artists, and set up an art studio. He started making very large, very detailed portraits. So some of these portraits that he would paint of people were like 8 feet tall and 7 feet wide. So they were very, very large, very detailed, and they would take him over one whole year to paint just one painting. But he would add so much detail. And he had different methods for creating his art. He used a method that actually inspired the way inkjet printers are made. So he would take red, yellow, and blue markers and scribble on his paper until he got the colors that he wanted. And this is kind of the same method that inkjet printers use, but they use dots of ink, obviously, instead of markers. And then after a while of doing these large portraits, he decided he wanted to take away the tools from his process, because an artist has to feel through the tools to the paper. So he actually just started using his fingers and making his portraits with fingerprints and finger painting, and still working in really large sizes, making these different portraits. And he also started doing a technique where he used grids. So he would break up his photographs into grids and then make a grid on his canvas and transfer what he saw from each square onto the corresponding square on his canvas. Now, another really interesting thing about Chuck Close is that he has a condition called face blindness. So he's not able to recognize people just by their faces. So I think that's a huge part of why he decided to do these very large portraits, but it's a very interesting condition for a portrait artist to have. And that is the reason why he has to work from photographs, because if he had an actual model sitting in his studio and they moved just a little bit, it would not look like the same face to him. Also, he might have a hard time getting someone to pose for over a year for one painting. But after many years of making art, he had a terrible tragedy happen to him, which he calls the event. So in 1988, he was at an art exhibition and he was speaking, and he got a really bad pain in his chest, and he walked across the street to the hospital and had a seizure and collapsed, and he woke up and he couldn't move his body. He was paralyzed. And one of the first things he thought about was, how am I gonna keep making art? So he didn't let this stop him, but he did have to change the way he made his art. So after lots of physical therapy, he was able to move his arms a little bit, and he made a special tool so he could strap a paintbrush to his hand, and he continued painting in his grid style. So his paintings now have different mixtures of color in each square, and he kind of breaks down the picture that he's working from into individual squares and just transfers each square onto his large canvas. And his art looks very different, but it is no less impressive than his previous works. He also adapted his art studio to help him with his new way that he has to make his art. So he actually has his canvas on like a big machine so he can move it around and make the part that he wants to paint closer to him because he can't move around as much. So he's a really amazing person and artist, and I hope you find his story inspiring. I'm going to show you how to make, we're going to do a simplified version of Chuck Close's style. Okay, so I'm going to start this out much like our last project with the outline of a face. So you can do a human face or an animal face, but I'm just going to draw the outline, and I'm going to include the features, but I don't want to color or shade anything in. I just want to do the outline. And I'm going to start with a pencil in case I need to erase anything. Then I can just trace over it with a Sharpie. And then if I need to erase any of my pencil marks, I can. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide my paper into a grid. And I'm going to use a pencil for this because I don't want to see these grid lines too much. So I could either go just up and down, or if I want to go side to side, I can. And I can pretty much just make my lines about the width of the ruler. If you want them a little bit smaller, you can make them a little bit smaller, but I don't want them to be too tiny because that's going to make it really hard to do the project. So I'm going to do lines one way across, and then I'm going to go the other direction. Okay, so once I have my grid, I'm going to get my colors ready. So I'm going to get 2 or 3 colors, and I can either use colored pencils, markers, pastels, whatever I like. And I'm going to get some, like 2 or 3 colors for my skin, 2 or 3 colors for my hair, a couple of colors for my background, and then if I have like some clothes. And then I'm just going to make different shapes inside each square using my colors that I chose. And you can either make shapes like we saw Chuck Close use in the video, or if you want to make different shapes, you can. You can have it be, you can use your artistic license to make your own creative shapes that you want to do. And then for the eyes and stuff, we can cheat a little bit and just color those in without using the different shapes. In Chuck Close's paintings, he makes much smaller squares, and he makes these shapes even for like the eyes, and he does, like, if people have glasses, he'll do one like for each section of the glasses and stuff. But since we don't have like 14 months to finish this, if you're inspired and want to spend 14 months, you can, but I kind of had a shorter time frame in mind, like 45 minutes or an hour for this project. So I'm just gonna start coloring in my squares with the different shapes, and I can switch it up a little bit in each square, and then I'll come in and make my eyebrows with one of my hair colors, and then I can just start filling in my hair. Now, if a square has, like, say this has hair and skin, I can just do the skin color and the hair color, and mix my different colors in there. So this will take me a little bit of time, so I'm gonna just spend some time filling this in with my shapes, and then I'll move on. You know, after I finish my skin and my hair, I'll do my background color. So I'm just going to spend some time coloring these in, and I hope you like this project. Thanks for watching my video.